Hello everyone, this is Prof. Dan and welcome to Prof. Dan Tutorials. Welcome to part 2 of this new series on what USCIS officer is looking for in your employment-based petition, particularly the extraordinary ability EB1A. Well, the goal of this educative video is to share with you all how you can avoid requests for evidence, RFEs, or even denials. And I'm going to show you how you can effectively demonstrate one of the criteria for this EB1A, which is leading or critical role within your organization. So if you missed part 1, if you've not watched part 1 before, I would advise you to check out the link in the description section of this video or on the playlist of EB1A petition on Prof. Dan tutorials to, recall the details of what I have initially covered. In that part 1, I covered the criteria on prices and awards for excellence. So please be sure to check it out. And here's what you're going to expect to learn in this must-watch video, this part 2. I'm going to share with you understanding USCIS requirements, breaking down exactly what the officer is looking for in your petition when they are evaluating whether you hold or held a leading or critical role. Another thing I'm going to show is key criteria, such as what are the factors that set a leading or critical role apart and how your contributions make an impact. The next thing I'm going to share with you is the types of evidence or exhibits you need to provide which can convincingly demonstrate your leadership or critical role. That is very important. And finally, I will also share with you throughout the whole presentation for this video, I will share insights from USCIS officers on a case that received an RFE and was later approved. So that's more like giving you practical examples to learn from. And why must you watch this? Well, I would say avoid common pitfalls and reduce the risk of RFEs or denials. And if you have received your own approval, share with people, individuals whom you know are trying to self-petition, are trying to write this by themselves so that they have better understanding of how to present their petition. And of course, subscribe, like, share, make comments. All right, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is a quick recap of what I covered in part 1. In part 1, I did mention that you should fulfill at least 3 of these criteria you see on the screen. One of it is awards, which again, I covered in part 1. In this particular video, again, like I said, I'm going to be covering the number 8 criterion, which is on leadership or critical role. In this one, you want to show evidence of a leading or critical role in a distinguished organization that you are working or you've worked for, Okay, so again, a quick recap. In the last video, part 1, for objective evidence for recognizing awards or prizes for the award criterion, I did list and explain many things that you should include in your petition. And as you can see the list on the screen, I'm not going through them again. These are in part 1. So if you haven't, please go ahead and watch it, especially if one of the criteria you want to use in your self-petition is awards or prizes, then go in there to watch it. For today's video, for those of you who have leading or critical role and you want to show that in your petition, that's the main content I'm sharing with you today. So let's get started with first, going through a case study. I'm going to read some of these verbatim so that we can get the context of the case. Then after that, I will start dissecting it for you to see how you can successfully have this criterion passed. So let's look at it. The petitioner submitted the above documents. So now I didn't include all the documents that the petitioner submitted, but there were several documents for this criterion of leading or critical role to establish that it meets the criteria. However, none of the snapshots, organizational charts, brief list of job duties, emails, letters, or minutes from committee meetings establish what the petitioner did, or that the petitioner had a leading or critical role. So if you look at this first sentence, is to draw your attention to the fact that you must indeed ensure that all the exhibits you submit and the written content in your petition really shows that indeed you had a leading or critical role. And again, never worry, I'm going to show you how you can accomplish that. Let's look at the second sentence. Also, the emails sent to the beneficiary are vague and do not provide specific information necessary to determine whether you were in a leading or critical role in these institutions. One thing to point out there is that ensure anything you're submitting is not vague. Make it explicitly clear. On to the third sentence. Furthermore, these documents appear to show that your position as, I've redacted that, is a subordinate position to others who seem to be performing in a leading or critical role. So here is the catch. This one is letting us know that, see, the particular title or role you are referring to doesn't seem to be leading. It seems to be subordinate, like you are answerable to others, not like others are answerable to you, something like that. But before we end this video, I'm going to share with you that, yes, you can show that you have a leading role. And if you do not have a leading role, you can also show that you have a critical role. It depends on how you present this critical role so that it doesn't show like it's subordinate to others. Okay, the last part says, for that paragraph, the last sentence says, these documents lack probative information that specifically addresses how the person's role for the organization, establishment, division, or department was leading or critical. Take note of that. And one thing I will point out here is that it could be a leading or critical role for an organization. It could be an establishment. It could be a division. It could be a department. So take note of that. For example, in terms of departments, we talk of maybe you work in a particular department in an organization, for those of you that have a work experience, or maybe for those of you working in an institution like a university within a particular department, or say, for example, those of you that work with associations or institutions, your professional association, you want to talk about that particular division in that establishment or in that organization, or maybe some of you working for a non-profit establishment, things like that. So it's kind of broad. So having looked into this case study from a USCIS officer, let's go much deeper into other parts for better understanding. But overall, in this context of case study, take note that The petitioner actually provided many documents as exhibits to establish that he meets the criteria for a leading or critical role in his field. However, the evidence submitted were insufficient. Secondly, to take note of is that the provided exhibits do not clearly demonstrate that the petitioner did or if they had a leading or critical role. And the third thing I want to point out here is that the role was subordinate in this person's case or lower in hierarchy. So having said that, let's get started. For those of you that haven't subscribed to Prof. Dan Tutorials, press the subscription button. Just press it. It doesn't bite. Press it. Use that to support Prof. Dan Tutorials channel. Okay, on to the next. Leading role criteria. So first, let me establish three things that can establish that indeed you have a leading role. What are these criteria? One is understand the USCIS evaluation. What are they looking for? Take note that USCIS evaluates whether the evidence that you have provided as exhibits, whether they establish that indeed you, the petitioner, is or was a leader within that particular organization, establishment, division, or department thereof. Take note of is or was. So it could be that you are presently a leader in that field, or it could be that it was so in the past. So if you have had that leadership role in the past, you can still leverage on that and support it with other things that really shows that it's been sustained. The second thing to take note of is title and duties. Take note that a title alone, even though is good, but is not sufficient. The title must be accompanied by appropriate matching duties that really demonstrate leadership. Say, for example, by saying, I was a manager in this or that department. Manager, of course, managerial role is indeed leading. However, you should be able to match it with what were the things that you really did. What were the things executed as a manager, and ensure that that aligns with your area of expertise, that's, your area of proposed endeavor that you're saying you are extraordinary in. The third one I'm going to look at is organizational hierarchy. Please take note that the leading role should be evident by its position in the overall organizational hierarchy. And what does that mean? You should clearly show that your role indeed holds significant authority and responsibility. Companies have their company organogram, and you could show that, yes, this is the person on top. These are the people that work under you, something like that. If you have that, you want to present that. So these three things are highly important. We are not done yet. There are still more vital things for you to learn from. So continue watching. But again, this is educating. You could take your pen, you jot things down, the ones that you think you need, the ones that aligns with you in order to help your petition. So the next thing is, now let's take a deeper look into what USCIS is really looking for. I've said some of these things, and I'm going to reemphasize some of them again. So the first thing, take note, is leadership evidence. You must provide clear evidence that you, the petitioner, is a recognized leader within your organization. That is very important. The second thing is your marching duties. Now, these duties, perhaps, let's put it this way. Now, the leading duties associated with your title should actually reflect leadership responsibilities. That could include decision-making, authority, managing teams, overseeing significant projects. That is highly important, which I will talk on. You want to show that those projects aligns with your area of expertise and you are already leading in that area. You see the connection, right? Now, the third thing is position in hierarchy, which I referred to earlier. But here, you, the petitioner, wants to show that the role shows that you are positioned high, in the organization hierarchy, and that indicates your leadership level. Again, this slide and the previous slides are kind of intertwined to let you further understand what USCIS is looking for in your petition. Now, one of the important things I will be sharing with you now, this is the main bone that is needed for survivor. And I sincerely want you to pause the video as I explain each of these points. It's not exhaustive. Take note that each of these, which I will be explaining, as objective evidence for demonstrating a leading role. All these are important. You might not have all of these, but take note that you should have at least the ones that can really demonstrate your leading role. So I'm going to explain each of these, take note of them, and see how you can utilize that in your petition. So the first thing is organizational charts. I've mentioned this time and time again. And what is this talking about? In the evidence you want to provide, try to provide an organizational chart showing your own position in relation to others. And that's going to highlight your leadership role. So your organization or establishment or institution has a website. If they have your profile in that website and profile of other people working with you in the team, you want to show that. If you don't have that, then you can look for another exhibit. Now, in these organizational charts, clearly indicates, it clearly indicates where you as the individual fits within the hierarchy and who reports to you. So that's one of the good ways you can show your leading role. The second thing I'm going to touch on is job descriptions and duties. Now, this can be of help as well. Now, you can submit detailed job descriptions that outline your leadership duties and responsibilities. And this could include examples of projects or job duties, initiatives you have led or you are leading, and perhaps their impact on the organization. So you can submit such. And that is possible through, say, for example, experience letter. So your organization can write an experience letter for you, which you can submit as part of your evidence of a leading role. Another important thing is a letter of recommendation. Let's look at that. You can obtain letters from, your institutions, your industry, senior executives or peers that can attest to your leadership role and significant contributions. Ensure, however, that these letters include specific examples. Give specific examples. Don't make it vague. Specific examples is the key word here of your leadership in action. The next thing I'm going to look at is if you have performance review, as some do have, you can use that as well. Now, what's this performance review? You can provide performance reviews that highlight your leadership skills, achievements, and any commendations received. There are some companies that operate that way, that they do annual review, something like that, and the person higher than you is able to assess your work. And you can print all of this out as well if it can benefit your petition, So reviews should indicate your ability to, lead in that capacity you are talking about, make strategic decisions, or drive the organization success in that specific field you are leading. Another thing is maybe awards and recognition. If there is any, you can submit evidence of any awards or recognition you might have received for your leadership. And of course, it should include descriptions of the award and the criteria for receiving them. This is different from the part of awards or prizes criteria, okay? And another one is media coverage. If it's available, I would advise you provide articles or media coverage that highlights your role and leadership within the organization. So we have some companies like that they provide all of these things in their website. If you go there, you can provide that evidence if it's there. Media recognition can indeed demonstrate public acknowledgement of your leadership. Another important one is, well, like I've mentioned, titles, roles. So documents, any official titles, and roles that explicitly describe your leadership position. You also want to provide all that. And again, the titles should be supported by detailed descriptions of your leadership duties. And one important one I'm going to draw attention to is significant project lead. You can emphasize more on this area. You can provide evidence of significant projects or initiatives you have led, including the outcomes and the impacts. Describe your own role in those projects, not just what the team did. Your own role in that project is very important to show that indeed it was a leading role. All right. I won't take note of all of these. Again, you can pause the video, go back to the previous slide again to have better understanding. And now I will go to the critical role criteria. Remember that there are two things. So remember that it's either a leading role or a critical role. If you have either of these, or if you have both, then why not speak about them? So for the critical role criteria, let's quickly look at what also do you think the USCIS officer will be looking for? One is the evaluation. Let's say the USCIS will examine whether the evidence that you provide for critical role shows that you have contributed. Take note of that. You have contributed in a way that is of significant importance to the outcome of the organization's activities, or those of a division or department within the organization. So you don't want the officer to tell you your role is subordinate, is not leading. Point their attention with citation to the fact that for this criterion, it says leading or critical. So if it's not leading, explain the critical very well so that that criterion can pass. Take note of that. The second thing is supporting role consideration. And for this, take note that even a supporting role can be considered critical if you, the petitioner's performance in that role, is significantly important. So that means in your petition, that's what you have to draw attention to. If you have just a critical role, to show that that role, though it's critical, though it's subordinate, but it's significantly important. And the next one is performance over title. Yeah, I'm explaining that. The importance of the role is not determined by the title alone in the case of critical, but by you, the petitioner's performance and impact on that organization. If you can show all of these, be rest assured that the USCIS officer will have no option than to pass you for this criteria. Then the next one is impact and contribution. You want to definitely pay attention to that. That you, the petitioner's performance, demonstrates indeed your critical impact on the organization or its activities. So if you have all of these and it's only a critical role, you will be able to indeed convince the USCIS officer. But when all of these things or some of it are missing, are not there, then it's easier to say, well, that's not a leading or critical role. All right, so the next thing we're gonna look at is, let's go deeper to what the USCIS officer is looking for, again, to further support the previous slides on this critical role. Number one thing is significant contributions. Please take note of that, significant contributions. Clear evidence of your contributions that have a significant impact on the organization's success is highly important. Second thing is performance evidence. Documentation of the petitioner performance that indeed highlights your importance in the organization is very important. And the last one is impact demonstration. You want to provide evidence showing how your role was or is indeed essential to the organization's activities and overall success. All of these are important in your leading or critical role criterion of extraordinary ability, EB1A petition. Okay, we're almost getting there. Let me briefly explain the objective evidence for demonstrating this critical role. The first one I have on the screen here is project reports and outcomes. So for this one, you can, provide detailed reports on the projects. If it's 1, 2, 3 different projects, highlight each of them, provide a detailed report on them, showing you have led or contributed to them. Highlight the outcome and how your involvement was indeed critical to the project's success. That is important. The second one is the performance evaluation. You can submit performance evaluation that indeed emphasize your key contributions and your impacts. You can include any commendations or special recognition received for your work. Letter of endorsements. You can obtain letters from supervisors, colleagues, or industry experts, excuse me, attesting to your critical role. Ensure again and again, I will always emphasize that the letter is specific. Ensure that the letter provides specific examples of your contributions and their importance to the organization, and ensure it is signed. For example, it could be by the HR of the organization or, the department head of the organization, something like that. The next one is organization achievements. You also want to ensure that you document the organization's achievement that resulted from your critical role. Yes, you did this critical role. You've shown how important it is. What were the achievements of that organization based on that role? if possible, include metrics, awards, or recognitions that the organization received due to your contributions, if they are available. The next one is on key initiatives and programs. You can also, if available, provide evidence of key initiatives or programs you were instrumental in developing or executing. You can list them out. These, and these were the things you did. Describe your role. That's very important. Describe your role, the initiative objectives, and the impact on the organization. Another one, if available, is media and publications. I would advise you to submit them, the media articles, publications, or even internal communications within the organization that recognize your critical role and contributions. Again, if it is available, take note that some people have all of these available to them. Present them in your petition. If you don't have all of them, make sure the important ones, as highlighted in this video, are provided. And highlight any of the media publication coverage emphasizing the significance of your work. Another one is on revenue and growth metrics. And if applicable to you, again, submit these metrics that demonstrate how your role indeed contributes to the organization's revenue growth, maybe cost savings, or maybe other financial successes. Include specific figures and explanations of your contributions. And another one I've pointed out here is on testimonials from beneficiaries. Depending on the kind of critical role you performed in, you can include testimonials from those who benefited directly from your contributions. And this can be from clients, partners, or other stakeholders impacted by your critical role. Having said all of this, I believe that you have taken note of something, and this will help you again, especially self-petitioners, to understand what you should have in the contents of your petition, backing each point up with exhibits or evidence. So now, please take note of something. Having said all of this about your leading or critical role is not sufficient to pass this criterion. It's not sufficient. There is one more thing that is very important, and that's one thing I'm going to explain to you now. Before then, let's take a quick look at the case study. It says, and I read verbatim, second, that is, after you've provided all of those evidence about your leading or critical role, or your leading and critical roles, then what next? Second, USCIS determines whether the organization or establishment or the department or division for which the petitioner holds or held a leading or critical role has a distinguished reputation. That is the catch here. If you do not do this part in your petition, I'm afraid, regardless of all the exhibits you've provided, it will not pass. So take notes. You must still go ahead to show that the organization that you have performed a leading and critical role for is indeed a distinguished organization with distinguished reputation. I know the thought would be, how are you going to show that the organization or the institution is distinguished or has a distinguished reputation? That's why I'm here for you, and I'm going to share briefly what you need. I won't go ahead and read the remaining parts. You can pause the video and read the remaining parts of this case study to understand better what the USCIS officer is requesting for. But overall, key takeaway on this second part is that, take notes for this, the petitioner provided documents to establish that they meet the criteria for a leading or critical role in their field. However, the evidence submitted were insufficient, as I have demonstrated earlier. And another thing is that the beneficiary, the petitioner in this case, did not say anything really about the reputation of the organization, how distinguished the organization is. And that's one of the reasons for this RFE. So now let's take a look at something important. What are the objective evidence that you can use to demonstrate the reputation of that organization, of that institution, of that department, of that division, of that establishment? What are the objective evidence you can use? One, before I explain, subscribe to Prof. Dan Tutorials. Share this video with your loved ones, with your friends, social media handles. Share it. Let it benefit people. Some people need this information, but they do not have these. Please share it with them. Thank you. Now, on industry awards and recognition, let me explain it to you. Provide evidence of industry awards or recognitions that the organization has received. This is not you now, it's the organization, to show that it's a reputable organization. Now you can include the details of the award, and its significance within the industry that you are leading or performing a critical role. The next thing again is the media coverage, because to show that indeed this is a reputable organization, they might have online presence. You want to show all of this as well. And you can get some of these things on the organization's website or other platforms. So you want to submit articles, press release, or even media reports that highlight the organization's achievements and reputation. You can include coverage in reputable industry publications or even major news outlets. If they are featured there, you also want to include that. Another thing is if you have them for that your organization, peer reviews and testimonials, you can obtain letters of endorsement from industry peers or experts that will speak directly to that organization's reputation in comparison to other, to their competitors. And again, pointing out that that testimonial or reviews should include specific examples of the organization's excellence and impact in the field. Another thing I'm going to point out is the industry ranking and surveys. If it's available again, try and provide the rankings or survey results where the organization is rated highly within its industry, in comparison to others. Include details of the ranking criteria, if possible, and the organization's position relevant to their competitors. Another thing I'm going to show is organizational milestones. Here you can highlight significant milestones or achievements in the organization's history. This organization, at so timeline, they achieved this and that. In this timeline, they achieved this and that. In this timeline, you can list all of that. Again, you're trying to show that this organization is reputable. So it's not enough to say, oh, this organization has been in existence for 50 plus years. That is not enough to show the organization reputation. It's not enough to show that, oh, the organization is multinational, having branches across the globe, or having this number of branches, above 1,000 plus in this country, in that country. That is not sufficient enough to show the reputation of the organization, but rather include 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these points I've noted, as you can see on the screen. And that will be it on this video, part 2. And I will see you next again in part 3. I'm excited that I know that this is meaningful to you, is helpful. I can see the metrics of you watching, the people watching this video and things like that. My own intention is to continue to help you, but take note, this is an educative material to assist you in your green card, permanent residence, US citizenship journey. And that's my goal, that you find it useful, because, you know, persons that can self-petition by themselves need the assistance of a lawyer, a registered representative, accredited representative, or a consultant, and they charge money. They charge at least 4,500 up to 10,000 or 10,000 plus. If you don't have the money, what happens then? So this is an opportunity for you to be able to do this by yourself. So this is my YouTube channel on the screen. That's the email. You can reach out if you need further assistance, and let's see how we can support you in your EB2 NIW or your EB1A self-petition. Watch other videos, playlists on this EB2 NIW or this EB1A if you have concerns. I'm sure if you watch them, you will be able to start your petition and even finish it all by yourself. DIY, do it yourself. All the best and take care. Bye. Bye.